Yeah.
Says we're not live.
Oh, right there, we're live. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Whoops. 1 second, guys. Just fixing this up.
What's that?
People are starting to sign up.
Okay.
Okay. So, who's online? Go ahead and enter in the chat box and say if you're on here, name, where you're coming in from. Just getting started here. Sorry, guys. Had a little bit of technical issues. Okay. So I see we have Tamara, Brenda, Gosia, Lindsay, Patricia, Kata, Sandra, Gail, Kelly, Pat, Mardell. Welcome, everybody. I'm here to announce and introduce everybody to our speaker for today's webinar. It's 7 Steps to Invincible Health. And it's going to be led by peak performance athlete, nutritionist, raw foods expert, and author Ronnie Landis. And let's all just get ready and give a warm welcome for Ronnie on 7 Steps for Invincible Health. Here we go, Ronnie.
Okay, right on. Thank you, Adam. Hey, everyone. Ronnie Landis here. And I'm really excited to be able to, first of all, join all of you on this interactive platform. I think it's really amazing that we live in the age of opulent abundance, and oftentimes I like to proselytize on some of the issues in our world relating to technological innovation. But in this case, I think it's amazing that we have the technology that allows us to cross communication boundaries that we never ever had pre-industrial revolution, and more so pre the last 2 decades and pre-internet. And now we have the opportunity to literally meet up and sync up, link up face-to-face and cross all communication barriers. And for someone like me, I get to provide just really amazing information and unique perspectives on the information that we're going to go over today in the 7 Steps to Invincible Health. I'm really honored that I get to do this with all of you, and all of you are here to participate in the opulent abundance of information that we have at our fingertips. So what the framework here today is that there's a lot of questions that people submitted before the webinar. So I want to honor everybody's questions. Maybe between the whole topic discussion or at the very end of me distilling these 7 steps to invincible health, I'm going to go through everyone's questions, and then any of you that are online right now, if you have questions, please put your questions into the chat box so we can address those too. I want to make sure that by the end of this whole webinar, we're able to address everyone's questions, everyone feels fulfilled, and that they got a piece of their puzzle, a piece of their health, well-being, and essentially their longevity puzzle put into place today. That's the whole goal of this, is that it's not just to fire hose information at all of you. That would be very easy. That would be very simple for someone like me. I can throw information out there to no end, but the whole point here is to be able to categorize this information, to organize it in a way that actually makes sense for you and that you could take action on immediately. That's the whole purpose of this, and that's why we organized some of the most primary principles of vitality, of youth, of essentially what we characterize as longevity, but not so much extending our life. We have a whole industry around anti-aging and life enhancement, or life extension, I should mean. But my whole feeling on longevity is actually more about life enhancement. Instead of focusing on how we can get more years in our life, let's focus on how we can increase the quality in the years that we get now, and then that in of itself will increase the probability of living on this earth longer. One of the great phrases that I like to share with people is that the more you want to be here, chances are the longer you'll get to be here. So that's kind of the driving directive that we're going to work from. So anyways, I'd love to jump into this with you without further ado and then go over the 7 principles for invincible health. So the very first thing is one of the ideas very near and dear to me, and I just a little background for everyone. The last 15 to 20 years of my life, I've been immersed in success philosophy. I've been immersed in all the personal development, all the success literature, the Anthony Robbins, Unlimited Power, the Jim Rohn information, the teachings of Dr. John DeMartini, Jack Canfield, Les Brown, all the way dating all the way back to like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, going even further back into Wallace Wattles' amazing work on the science of getting rich and the science of becoming great, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, yada, yada, yada. I mean, we could rattle things off all day long. Now, the distillation of all the years of research and all the applications in my own life of carrying this information out and testing things has come down to one core principle. And this is the one thing I see people make more mistakes on in every single area of their life than anything else. And this one thing is at the absolute fringes of simplicity. In fact, it's so obvious, it's just right here in our face, and we have to take a few steps back to actually realize what that thing is. What am I talking about? Well, basically, what it comes down to is making a decision. Now, I want to just kind of put a little gap between that for a second. The ultimate key to any success in anything in your life, any endeavor in your life, is coming to terms with everything that's led you up to this point and then making a decision to follow through. This is the thing, and this is so simple and it's so obvious that I think we myopically focus on all these other things. We put our magnifying glass on all these complex theories and principles, and we lose sight of what's obvious and what's right in front of us, what's real. And ultimately, most of the problems people have come from the lack of conviction the lack of confidence, and ultimately the inability to make a complete decision on their life and to literally follow it through. That's why you see people after Christmas, after New Year's, what do people do? They get inspired after they've eaten, boatloads of crap on New Year's Eve. And then they get inspired. Oh, I'm going to do a workout program. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to go to the gym. And then every gym owner, every personal trainer knows the deal is about January, the gyms are packed, right? So you got all these people that are coming to the gym. They want to work out. They want to hire a trainer, whatever. And then about February, it starts to tailor off. About 50% of those people will actually start to retreat back into their normal behaviors, their normal habits, because they haven't truly made a decision. They haven't aligned all their values in their life with that moment that ultimately making a decision will shape one's destiny. Tony Robbins always says that the moment of making a decision is what actually creates your destiny. We think logically, a lot of times we think that there's an order, there's a step-by-step process, there's a linear process. For example, it's going to take me a certain amount of time to get to where I want to be. So it's going to take me a month. It's going to take me 2 months. It's going to take me 5 months, whatever. But the reality is that you can geometrically progress non-linearly. You can anything that you want in your life. In this terms, having vibrant, invincible health is something that you can activate right now. You don't have to wait tomorrow. You don't have to wait a week from now. You don't have to wait a month. You don't have to wait a year. You don't have to wait till your next incarnation on this planet to have invincible health. In fact, you can activate the triggers of genius that exist inside of you by making a decision. Instead of most people, they've already made an unconscious decision to live in lack, to live in the negative, to live in some kind of story about being a loser. I don't mean that derogatorily. I just mean that most people have accepted losing. They've accepted the fact that they never win. They never are the lucky winner. They never win the golden ticket. With their lot in life is their lot in life, and that's going to be the way it is. And you don't have to be that way. You can decide to activate the triggers of genius right now. You can take on the archetype of a winner by just telling yourself that, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am turning on the triggers and it is go time. So that's number one, is the psychological reinforcement that you are a winner and that you are going to actually turn all the stories of your past, you're going to throw that into the ash bin of history, and you're going to move forward as a new, renewed version of yourself. So that is principle number one. Principle number two is going from survival mode to thrival mode as far as our nutrition is concerned. So when I look at all the diets in the world, I look at the cooked food diets, I look at the animal-based diets, the carnivore diets, the paleo diets, even a lot of the raw food and vegetarian and vegan-based diets, a theme always comes up for me is that not most of these diets, if not all of them, are still based on maintenance modification, meaning that we are modifying our diet only into the point where it keeps us kind of relatively in normality. It keeps us relatively where we've always been, or in the case of living plant food, we actually incorporate more food that has biophotonic energetic signatures that actually increase our energetic signature and our energy systems. And what Living Foods does is that it, over more than just going into all the data, all the benefits of Living Foods, because I can certainly do that, but for time sensitivity, the main thing that it does for most people is that it clears out all the abrasive, obstructive, and clogging foods that are basically causing the majority of food allergies, that are causing the behavioral issues, that are causing the brain fog, that are causing cardiovascular problems, so on and so forth. It literally subtracts almost entirely all the major food allergies, which are wheat, corn, soy, dairy, refined sugar. Those are the main 5 food allergies. Let's say it again: wheat, corn, dairy, refined sugar, and soy products. I don't think I mentioned that. Soy products. Those are the 5 main allergens that people are dealing with, both digestively, thyroid, hormonally, and cognitively. Now, once you eliminate those things by a process called subtraction by addition, which is where we add things in that literally push all the bad things out. Another way of saying that is chelation by replacement. There's a type of therapy in the world called chelation. So this is where we put in things like, we'll talk about this a little more, but things where you put in certain substances that bind onto toxins in the body and pull them out. It's an extraction form of detoxification called chelation. And so this is another way of phrasing this process, is that chelation by replacement is adding in something like magnesium that will literally push out excess calcium. Instead of having this whole story about, I need to do this diet, and so I need to get rid of everything, and I need to subtract all the things I enjoy, and I need to create a void in my life, right? That's the thing, is that you can never actually create a void in your life. It's a problem with the theory of physics, actually, is that if you create a void, something will seek to fill that void. There's no black holes really present, is that there's always going to be something to fill the void. So in our own life, if we create a void, something will come in to fill it. And so we want to have direct intention on what we're using to fill that void, which in terms of living plant food, in terms of a thrival lifestyle, instead of just subsisting, instead of just surviving, we want to thrive. We're upgrading all our food options every single day. We're looking out onto the universe, or the menu board of the universe, and we're saying, you know what? Yesterday I had the cottage cheese, I had the baked potato chips, I had the soy veggie burger, I had the pasteurized, homogenized, genetically modified, antibioticized, a million other obstructive chemicals put into our milk. I had all that, and you know what? I don't want that anymore. I'm actually going to go over here and start upgrading my options step by step. That's how thriving is done. And eventually what's going to happen is that when you start to adopt this philosophy, see, I'm talking in context, I'm talking in philosophy first, so we get the overall idea, the context. Once we got that, all the necessary puzzle pieces that are unique to the individual will start to be attracted to you. They'll start to show up in your world, but you have to understand the context before you can actually start to enjoy the content. Anyways, so that's the whole point of a raw food, living food-based lifestyle, is it's an upgrade on everything else that society has presented to us. Now, I don't want to go into all the details of, how to exactly do that. We don't really have the time, and also it's going to be unique to the individual. But through the rest of the stages of the principles that I'm going to discuss with you on this live webinar, I think it might become more obvious to a lot of you how to put those puzzle pieces in the place that you want to put them. One thing about living foods that I do need to address, though, as it keeps showing up on my radar screen, is that whoever you are that's watching this, you may be completely new to living food. You may have barely even heard of it. Maybe you heard about me on social media, on YouTube or whatever, you're on my email list, and you're just kind of getting into the door. So you're like, okay, what's that one thing that's going to help me just kind of get my foot into the door, get myself into the game? Some of you may have been on this path for quite some time. So you know the deal, and you're just experimenting with things because your body is changing, you're changing, your hormones are changing, your goals in life are changing, which is a really key element of diet, is that diet is never stagnant, right? In fact, the word diet has the word die in it. So let's change that to the live it, right? Let's upgrade that to the live it. How do we live this thing full on? One of the principles about living food success is this. First of all, I don't believe that most people, if not anyone, over the long term is going to be 100% raw food. I've kind of figured that out for myself. I figured that out for most people, is that most people are going to find themselves preferentially in the ratio of about 70, 30, 80, 20, or 90, 10 of raw to cooked food. Now, this is assuming that you're approaching it from a vegan or vegetarian standpoint. Certainly, these are not rules. These are just tools that you can use to follow out and kind of use as a guiding post for your ultimate success. But I find around that 70 to 80% ratio of raw living food to 20 to 30% cooked food, plant-based food preferably, is what works mostly for most people. Now, here's an important principle before we move on. Someone's success on a raw food diet, to me, is dependent on their ability to efficiently metabolize fat. This is a very key thing, is because we hear a lot about these high carb, raw food, fruit-based diets. We hear about low carb. We hear about kind of these different configurations of numerically focused diets. They're focused on numbers. So it's got to be 80% carbohydrates and 10% protein and 10% fat and whatever. And all that doesn't really make sense at the end of the day. What does make sense is, how does the food make you feel after you eat it, right? If you eat a food like an avocado, you eat an olive, you eat cacao, you eat durian, you eat coconut products, how does the food make you feel? Because we live in an age of toxicity, which we'll discuss in a moment, but people's livers have been literally congested. It's something called fatty liver or congested liver, where their gallbladder is not able to produce the adequate amount of bile flow to go in and help and neutralize the acidic the acid production of our digestive fluids, our gastric acids, and also to help metabolize fat properly. So a lot of people that can't process fat as a dominant source of fuel, they actually have liver and gallbladder issues, and they need to actually start to approach a liver gallbladder flush to reset their metabolism. And this is where kind of the rubber meets the road long term, is that if you're going to be a raw foodist, or you're going to be dominantly a living foodist, then you have to understand how your unique metabolism works. And the way to upgrade no matter what you choose to eat, the way to, what's the word I'm going to use? The way to guide yourself is based on the principles of metabolic typing. It's really based on what's called fast oxidizers and slow oxidizers. Another way of saying this is parasympathetic dominant and sympathetic dominant. And this all has to do with the way your metabolism actually burns fuel, burns food as fuel for energy. If something causes stagnation when you eat it, if you eat something and you feel drowned out, you feel tired. Say, for example, I'm gonna catch my breath because things are flooding into the conscious stream right now, but I wanna make sure everyone gets the message. If you, in the morning, you're trying to figure out what's the best thing for me to eat for energy. Remember, everything is based on producing energy. So if you eat something and it weighs you down, that's not really appropriate. But if you eat something and it actually makes you feel more alive and more energetic, not necessarily stimulated, but actually just like clear and like ready to go, then you're on the right track. So you can do something called the glucose tolerance test, which is basically something where in the morning you can have a piece of fruit after you've had water, after you've flushed out your acids in the morning, you've gone to the bathroom, all that kind of thing. Then have a piece of fruit and then see how you feel 30 minutes after, an hour after. Now, if you feel like your blood sugar tanks out and you feel bad, you feel spacey, then you probably have a sugar metabolizing issue. You have a sugar carbohydrate issue. And the fact of the matter is that that's not the best form of fuel for you as a dominant fuel source, meaning that you probably are not a carbohydrate dominant type of person, you may need to actually allocate your fuel source over to more fat. So that could be something like an herbal tea with coconut oil in it, or if you're a vegetarian or not, that could be ghee butter. But I love coconut oil for this because coconut oil actually is metabolized by your liver, and it's an easy energy source. It's quick and easy and gives you the saturated fat that you need to produce brain ketones and all that other stuff that helps us go on with our day with efficiency. So that's something that you can do to kind of test that, to see which form of fuel works for you best, and then test it as you go through your day. Okay, we could really get lost in that subject alone. So I want to move on to the third principle of Invincible Health, which appears to be the superfoods every thriver needs regularly. Okay, so let's go into this quickly. What is a superfood? I want everyone to kind of get this loose definition of a superfood so we're all clear on it, because of marketing, because of the popularity of raw food diets, of plant-based diets, and quote-unquote superfood diets, there's so much marketing and confusion around this term. So let's break it down. To me, at this stage in my nutrition exploration, a superfood is basically a type of food that has the longest track record of use, meaning that it's been used historically. It's not like a pharmaceutical. It's not like an antibiotic. It's not like Kraft macaroni and cheese or something that has a very short shelf life, or it has a long, short shelf life, but has a very short usage rate, meaning that we haven't had this in our diet for that long, comparatively speaking. We don't really know a whole lot about it, and chances are it's probably causing us a lot of issues. But when we look at something like goji berry, it has thousands of years of historical usage. When we look at cacao, it has at least 13,000, if not longer, years of historical usage. When we look at olives, it has one of the oldest track records of any food that's ever been discovered in the world of historical usage. When we look at noni, when we look at acai, when we look at coconut products, when we look at mangosteen, when we look at spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae, marine phytoplankton, all these foods have been historically used throughout the trajectory of time, so we can rest assured that they probably are pretty beneficial for us. Now, the other part of superfoods is that they have unique, novel compounds that actually signal epigenetic and genetic responses in our body. So that means they literally turn on certain genes that activate longevity characteristics. They actually activate hormones in the body, not exogenous hormones like bioidentical hormones, which is something that we want to avoid completely, but they activate endogenous hormones in endorphins, in neurotransmitters, meaning that they have compounds that are hormone precursors. Most of the supplement and pharmaceutical and even the bioidentical hormone industry, for that matter, deals in end products, right? A bioidentical progesterone, bioidentical testosterone is an end product. It's an end of itself. So when you take that, it's very steroidal, it's very overt, and can cause metabolic and cancer-forming issues over time. This has been proven. But when you take something like a yam-based progesterone, it's actually based on the precursors for building progesterone in the body, and helps the body actually form its own natural production of progesterone. Or in the case of goji berry, there's a compound called sesquiterpenoids that actually, they're precursors for human growth hormone, basically. So they help the body produce its own natural supply of human growth hormone, which is a super longevity substance. But if you inject yourself with human growth hormone, then you're going to have some metabolic and hormone and estrogen dominant problems later on in life. So we just want to get that clarity of that distinction, is that we're going towards food that actually helps construct our biochemistry on how to create the hormones and create all the longevity supporting and healing, rejuvenation supporting chemistry in the body. And our body is our own natural healing mechanism. It's our own natural healing facility. So if we support it with the right nutrition and the right superfoods, it will do what it needs to do. What are the top superfoods? If I were to just feel like, if you guys are listening and you're like, Ronnie, like, great information and whoa, like, what do I do? Like, just tell me what to eat, right? I get that a lot. Like, okay, that's great, and what do I do? Tell me what to eat. So here, I'm gonna tell you what to eat. Goji berries, for sure. Cacao, and I'm really into cacao paste opposed to cacao butter now, cacao powder nowadays. I feel like most of the cacao powder is very oxidized. And it's obviously mechanically pressed. They put the cacao beans into a a machine that actually presses out the oil and presses out the cakey powder, and that's how they create those two divisioned out products of the cacao bean. I like the paste the most, especially for hot tonics, is because it has all the constituents of the cacao bean. It's just been pressed out. So it's the most similar to its indigenous usage, especially when you do it in a hot tonic. So cacao is up there. All the cyanobacteria, otherwise known as algae, which is spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae, and marine phytoplankton. Those things are absolutely powerhouses in any kind of diet, especially spirulina and especially chlorella. Those are my two favorites. And then beyond that, let's look at coconut products. Coconut products are absolutely critical for anyone's diet, or live it. And the thing about coconut products, let's break that down real quick. Coconut water. The coconut is botanically a nut, by the way, just so we're clear, and people think it's some other kind of thing like a fruit. It's actually a nut that houses the most amazing liquid that literally has been used as a blood transplant or transfusion device in World War II and Vietnam and that kind of thing. So what's really amazing about coconut water is that it literally is 55% identical to hemoglobin. That's your blood. Hemoglobin is your blood, if anyone didn't know that. And it's almost identical to your blood medium, your blood chemistry. So if you have blood chemistry issues, you have mineral deficient issues, your blood, there's something off with your blood chemistry, then coconut water is an amazing thing to literally saturate your body with, and it actually helps to rebuild your blood. Another thing about coconut water is that it is nature's richest source of electrolytes. Now, electrolytes are basically a combination of 4 ions, 4 minerals that are known as electrolytes because they're electrolytical. They are the main elements found in nature. They're all alkaline minerals that actually activate our electrical circuitry in our nervous system, in our CNS, our central nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, that allow everything to fire and also allow blood sugar regulation, blood sugar balance, allow clear thinking, cognitive focus, so on and so forth. And those minerals are calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium. Those 4 together make up the dominant electrolytes that are present in coconut water and increase hydration potential. So I think that's a really cool perspective on what actually makes up an electrolyte. It's calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And then there's the coconut meat and the coconut oil. And the coconut oil is amazing as a toxic oil chelator. Now, it's kind of like that definition that I gave you guys in the beginning, chelation by replacement. It's not actually chelating toxic oils or rancid, partially hydrogenated oils out of the body per se. It's pushing them out by the process of replacement. Again, it's that adding in principle. We add in the upgrade and then replace out all the stuff that no longer serves us. So anyways, that's one of the most powerful things to get all that gunky, rusty, rancid oil out of the body is putting in coconut oil. And one last thing I want to say about coconut oil before we move on is that it is a very powerful form of saturated fat. One of the principles of detoxification is soaking up fat-soluble toxins. Now, we've heard of water-soluble toxins. That's what bile from your gallbladder does, by the way, is it homogenizes with the fat that you're consuming, and then what's the way I'm looking? Oh, it helps to turn fat soluble nutrients or fat solubility into water solubility, so it's more processable. It's able to metabolize more efficiently in the body. But if you have that liver gallbladder issue, then that's a problem. So coconut oil is actually one of the best sources of assimilable saturated fat, and also by binding up and soaking up fat-soluble toxins and pulling that out of the body. So that's one thing I want to say about coconut oil, is it can be used for building the body, structuring the body, and also for breaking down and eliminating some of these harder to release toxins in the body. So that's a little note on superfoods. Catch my breath here. In fact, I encourage all of us, let's catch our breath together. One more just for fun. Okay. The fourth principle of creating invincible health is quarterly detoxification. Quarterly detoxification is basically the acknowledgement that we live in a very toxic world. I mean, I've heard estimates that over the last 70 years, we have literally spewed 70 to 77,000 identifiable chemicals into the upper atmosphere, into our environment, and we are the experiment of that whole catastrophe. We're taking in all these toxins into ourselves, and many of the toxins that people are dealing with are both environmental, meaning what we're breathing in, what we're touching, the volatile organic compounds in our living furniture, in our living environment that are off-gassing from our living environment, and also all the buildings and carpets that we're being exposed to. And then also biological toxins that are being formed from the process of metabolism. So all the food that we eat, it either goes into constructing the body, or it goes into producing energy, or it goes into basically being released. So waste products that are not able to construct our body or not able to be used into immediate energy, like ATP energy, then the rest of it has to be eliminated from the body. We call that biological waste. And a lot of this waste is being accumulated, is being compounded into the intestinal tract, because there's a number of issues depending on the person going on, digestive and elimination based issues, colon issues, where this stuff is just accumulating and it needs to be released out of the body, or it creates what's called an auto intoxication, which is basically a fungal and bacterial fermentation that happens, and then it creates off-gassing metabolites or chemicals in the body that start to create brain fog, that basically create the symptoms of candida, the symptoms of bacterial or viral or pathogenic infections, where we have like chronic fatigue syndrome is well known to be rooted in a viral infection. And so this is kind of what's going on, is that when we have an inner ecosystem that is acidic and is causing fermentation because we're not eliminating everything properly, then we're going to start to create the bedding ground or the environment for the propagation of dis-ease. That's a really important principle, is that if we don't engage in regular cleansing protocols, we're going to continuously create the environment that favors anaerobic organisms, which are non-oxygen respiring organisms, And we want to create an environment that provides more room for aerobic organisms or aerobic respiration. Basically what our body, our cells run on, which is oxygen and hydrogen respiration. And if we're on this side where we're highly acidic and we have all that fecal matter and all that compounded waste over the years built up in our gastrointestinal tract and our colon, we're going to create the propagation of these anaerobic organisms, which basically are bacteria, mold, yeast, fungus, viruses, and parasites, and all the things that we don't want. So how do we do that? Well, there's a number of ways that we can engage in cleansing, but ultimately it comes down to intestinal cleansing. So here is the strategy for creating ultimate vibrancy, ultimate beauty, ultimate radiance, because our skin, our outer appearance is a reflection of our inner environment. If we have skin issues, if we have pimples and all this kind of stuff, all this pus and bacteria that's literally being pressed out of the lymphatic system and out into the skin because it needs to be cleansed out of the body, then that's what's going on, is that it's an outer reflection of an inner environment. Anyways, colon hydrotherapy is one of the most amazing tools that we have available to us. And I definitely encourage everyone out there. First of all, if you've never had a colonic before, I advise you might even want to get off this call right now and make that call. In fact, don't do that. Stay here and just pick up the phone and turn this on, turn the dial down and call your local colon hydrotherapist right now and schedule a session. There's different forms of colon hydrotherapy. There's the open machine method, and then there's the closed machine method where someone actually inserts the tube into your rectum. If anyone didn't know what a colonic was, it sounds a little more uncomfortable than what it really is. But I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to make a long story short. The power of colonics is unlike almost anything I've ever seen to immediately cause someone to have an experience. Green vegetable juicing, raw living foods, superfood saturation, all that stuff is daily tools for physical and health excellence that you have to do every single day as a ritual. But it takes a little longer to have that aha experience. But when someone gets a colonic and they move out literally pounds and pounds potentially of fecal matter out of their GI tract and out of the whole eliminatory canal, what happens is people feel lighter, they feel more vibrant, their brain starts working better, and they're just happier. Could it be that, this may sound blasphemous, preposterous, or whatever, but could it be that we feel weighed down under the weight of life because we're carrying on way more weight than we need to be? I'm going to let you come to your own conclusions about that one. But the ultimate invincibility tip right now is colon hydrotherapy and doing quarterly colonics, okay? So that is principle number 4. Principle number 5 is how to have a powerful immune system. This is the key of all longevity research. All health advancement of the future is going to pretty much rest on the shoulders of immunological momentum, or empowering our immunological power system. So our immune system is basically the governing agency of everything going on in the human body. Let me break that down for you very quickly. Your immune system is actually broken into different tiers. There's different factions of your immune system. There's your innate immune system, and there's your adaptive immune system. Your innate immune system is basically the built-in genetic software that you get at birth and you get from the breast milk of your mother when you're hopefully breastfeeding. And a lot of people didn't get their breast milk. They had a cesarean section. They were bypassed that. They went straight to soy formula or some kind of weird microwavable plasticized concoction of some kind of weird thing that has nothing to do with your mother's breast milk. So they never got that immunological genetic information. So they're literally, or they've been antibioticized, they've been on heavy amounts of antibiotics. So essentially their innate immune information is not present. And it's a miracle that most of us have even made it this far based on that reality. But regardless, there's certain substances that you can put into your body that help to jumpstart that innate immune system. And that basically is our frontline defense system against all pathogens, against all virus and bacteria and funguses and parasites and all invasive organisms that would cause us bodily harm or biological disturbance. And then we have our adaptive immune system, which is like our white blood cells that help adapt to changing circumstances. So you may have heard the term adaptogen, right? Ultimately, what we want to do is make our body more resilient and more adaptable to the alteration in circumstances or the alteration in our environment if we're moving to different places at all times possible. The best food for feeding our white blood cells are the medicinal mushrooms. The medicinal mushrooms. These are things like reishi mushroom, chaga mushroom, lion's mane, Coriolis or Trametes versicolor, turkey tail, Agaricus blazei, even the button mushroom, which is known as Agaricus bisporus, shiitake, maitake, cordyceps mushroom, so on and so forth. But the two primary immunological supporting herbs are reishi mushroom, which is known as the queen of the herbs, and then chaga mushroom, which is known as the king of the medicinal mushrooms or tonic herbs in general. And those have what are called polysaccharides. Those are long chain carbon-based sugars that get diced up by our immune system and get fed to our white blood cells. And they literally dock onto the white blood cell. If this is your white blood cell, this is a polysaccharide. It goes in, boom, like a lock and key mechanism and docks on like a USB port and downloads or uploads immunological information and literally educates our white blood cells on how to become more efficient, more effective, and more resilient to a variety and a diversity of organisms and stress that would cause our immune system to collapse. So that's the basic idea there, is that we have our innate immune system and our adaptive immune system, and then we have our lymphatic system, which regulates the whole immunological picture in of itself. So that's the basic idea I want to put forth to you guys, is empowering our immune system through probiotics, through medicinal mushrooms, and through lymphatic circulation. Okay, so that's movement. That's actually, the more movement you do, the less sedentary our lifestyle is, the more we're moving around, the more active we are, the more our immune system is going to come back online. And that's a key principle to all areas of healing, is that we don't really heal ourselves. A lot of people say we heal ourselves. That's kind of the new spiritual kind of thing, is that, oh yeah, your doctor doesn't heal you. Your dentist definitely doesn't heal you. You heal you. And I want to take that a step further, is that your body actually has inherent built-in mechanisms to heal itself that our mind doesn't need to get in the mix of. But if we have a weakened immune system, then we're not going to be able to actually endure the onslaught of chemicalization, the onslaught of hormone issues, hormone disruptions, and everything else that we've discussed that are going to throw our body out of harmonics, that are going to throw our body out of harmony. But if our immune system is strong, it literally puts up an impenetrable force field against all those invasive organisms that are looking to literally symbiotically work in our body, but not for our body. They want to take over the body, kind of like a remote control. And that's actually a subject that I could go deep into, like parasitology and how these organisms use our body like a remote control and actually cause us to crave sugar. Like when we think we actually are craving sugar, it may not be us that's craving sugar. It may be the organisms inside of us that are causing us to crave sugar, that are causing us to crave alcohol addictions, carbohydrate sensitivities, the crazy epidemic of diabetes, and also food allergies being connected to the epidemic of diabetes, and hypoglycemic tendencies, all having to do again with pathogens taking over their host. So if we have that immune system solid, then these are things that we don't necessarily have to put our magnifying glass on every moment of every day. How nice would that be? Okay, so that's that principle. The sixth principle, let's take another breath real quick here. Ah, yay. Let's take one more. That felt good. Yay. Hope you guys are having a good time here. Hope you're enjoying the journey, the train of thought we're all exploring together. And now, from the health perspective, the last principle I want to discuss is how to literally transmute stress. This is so key, is that we need to actually transmute the stress in our life, in our world. Because if we don't learn how to convert or alchemize the stress that we're dealing with, then we are going to break down at the seams. And now this is no big secret. Most of the world, especially the Western world, is being under the weight or under the pressure of sympathetic overload. This is our central nervous system basically going out of control. It's basically fight or flight. It's the fear-based mechanism inside of us that is trying to respond to everything from a stress-based state of feeling. When we feel fear, when we feel stress, when we feel like we're not enough, when we feel just kind of out of balance, it signals in our biochemistry a massive amount of adrenaline, a massive amount of cortisol, and this essentially is what causing the non-chemical or the non-diet related estrogen problems, because it has been found out that when someone has an elevated amount of cortisol, that cortisol can convert into steroidal forms of estrogen. So estrogen dominance absolutely has a lot to do with an overload of stress in our life. That's why when I talk to people and I coach clients about weight gain or weight loss issues, hormone balance, I have to ask them, what's your lifestyle like? What's your stress like? Do you do what you love? Do you make your day play instead of work? I mean, what does all that look like for you? Because that has a major implication on all issues of physical health, of physiology. I want to put this out there, is that every single physical issue going on in the body, every single physical manifestation absolutely is rooted in some kind of emotional and mental holding pattern that has literally crystallized itself in the neuromuscular structure of our body and causes these little crystal crustaceans in these holding patterns in our body, and causes us to break down over time. So we need to understand and set ourselves up to win with certain rituals in our life that allow us to transmute that stress more effectively. Doing what you love is a great way to start that process. Writing down things like a journal is a great way to unload the mental storage of all the thoughts and all the stuff that we record over a lifetime, all the stories. Just put it out in a journal and start to unravel that riddle, that mystery of yourself to yourself, and learn how to transmute the stress. Another thing to do is physical exercise. One way I like to exorcise, like an exorcism, exorcise stress, is through working out, through channeling it through movement is really key. I find that to be incredibly helpful in times of stress and anxiety. So those are a few things that you can do, but just knowing that stress is possibly the biggest contributor to all accelerators of aging in the world. And the seventh principle, before we get on to the seventh principle, I am going to ask that everyone viewing right now, hold your seats, hold your horses, get a glass of water maybe. I need to go get my battery charger, plug it into my phone, and I will be back in about 30 seconds. Aloha. Okay, I'm back. So the seventh principle of creating invincible health from my perspective is after you've gone through all the information, you've saturated yourself with information. I know a lot of you people watching this have done that. You've been in the health food movement for years. You've gone to all the seminars, you've read all the books, you've done it all. What do you do with it now? Well, you have to integrate all this information, all the strategies into the template or the mosaic of your life. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're creating your own unique lifestyle design. You're a lifestyle design specialist. That's what you're doing. You're creating a lifestyle that helps you create invincible health, that creates vibrancy, that creates beauty, that creates radiance, that creates the love and joy and the health and energy that you ultimately aspire for. That's what you're doing with all this. So now you just need to take one or two things that you got out of this and then find out in your life, hey, you know what, that fits in there. I could do the morning glucose tolerance test. I could see, does this fruit really work for me in the morning? Or I could try that tonic he's talking about, that cacao, yerba mate, maca, coconut oil, whatever, honey, sea salt, astragalus or reishi tonic. I could try that in the morning and see how that works for me. I could try that superfood smoothie and add one new thing. Maybe add hemp protein powder, add cacao, add goji berries, add coconut water. I can make my own almond milk. I could start writing things down. You know, I can start writing down my own recipes. Whatever that little puzzle piece is for you, I want you to now take action and integrate it into your lifestyle. And every day, start to do this. Start to find new ways I can engage with all these programs, with all this information, and then just integrate it. So one day, it's not so intellectual. It's not in my head thinking like, well, what do I do with all this stuff? I'm just going to keep reading the books. I'm just going to keep doing. I'm going to keep listening to all the information and not really embodying it. Well, that's what I want to help you achieve, is that you embody it, you integrate it and take action, so it no longer is just some diet. It's part of your lifestyle. It's part of you. So if you're a coach and you're out there talking to people and you're helping people, it comes from a place of experience, and it comes from literally your physiology. It's literally patterned into your physiology, and you are a representation of what this lifestyle and what you're talking about could be for another person. You are that living model of potential for all the other people that are listening to you. That is the deal. So integrating this stuff into your life is absolutely key. So those are the 7 principles of creating invincible health. what I want to do with the time that we have left now is I'm going to go into the questions, but before I do that, I want to introduce the 2 bonuses that we have on this webinar. Every webinar, we do a bonus just for everyone that is signing on, that made the investment to come on here, that made the time. We appreciate that. And so we want to make a bonus available to you guys. The first bonus is actually my Holistic Health Mastery Nutrition Certification Program. Now, some of you are actually members in this, and many of you are not. You may know about this, you may not. It's basically a 70 video curriculum with bonus videos and many other features, and it's a holistic nutrition certification course that is all done online. All the videos are laid out for you. There's no time restrictions. There's no time limits. It's all there at your own convenience, and you can engage in it as soon as you want to. Essentially, it's an intuitive platform that allows you to go at it at your own pace. And again, that's called the Holistic Health Mastery Program. And the price of that program, because we've accrued so many new students and we're upgrading all the platforms, all the programs, the price has gone from $800 to about $1,500. And what we're doing with this bonus that we're offering is we're cutting that about 60% in half. So there should be a little pop-up, Adam is popping up for you guys, with a link to a special page that we made for to invite you to join our Inner Circle program. The Inner Circle program gets full access to all the bonus material, to all the student support that we're about to unveil in the next week or two in the form of bi-weekly conference calls where I'm on the call with all the students in the course. We have about almost 100 students in the program right now, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to be on the phone answering all the questions, student support. We're going to be talking about in more detail on the topics in the course, all that kind of thing. There's a lot of more stuff available too. So all the information is on that website that should be in front of you right now. So I'm going to let you guys click on that if you're interested. And let's answer a question or two before I jump into the next thing here. So one of the questions that I have is from Patricia Lamprin. She asked me, the question is, what would you like to know about having Invincible Health? And she said, what's the best way to go about sustaining Invincible Health? Okay, great question, Patricia. How do you sustain Invincible Health? I think it's immunological. I think from a physical perspective, it's immunological. And so we were talking about empowering the immune system. Ultimately, you're going to navigate and you're going to create a healthier and healthier and more sustainable diet for yourself, and that's going to change as you change. That's one piece of the puzzle, but ensuring your insurance policy, your health assurance policy is your immune system. So doing medicinal mushrooms every single day, making medicinal mushrooms like reishi mushroom, cordyceps mushroom, and chaga mushroom a part of your daily life, like food. These are not just some herbs. These are not just some supplements. These are literally food that you take every single day, and it's immunological nutrition. And the best source I recommend for those is www.lifefoodherbs.com, which is my affiliate link to Jing Herbs. I work with Jing Herbs a lot, and I've been a consumer of their products for many years, and I'm actually a brand ambassador with them at this point now. And that link is lifefoodherbs.com, and I have a few videos on that link of chaga mushroom and reishi and some of the other herbs like hoshu wu, I think astragalus, eucomia, some of the others that you can check out as well. So that's my answer to that. And then she also asked, when am I coming to the East Coast? I'm coming to the East Coast as soon as someone books me to come to the East Coast. I actually want to start booking a speaking tour across the country And the Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, and the whole East Coast area is absolutely prime for me to start doing. So if anyone out there has connections and wants to start helping put that together, connect with me. Let me know. Let's see. The next question I have is from Gail. What is the quickest and most potent way to achieve health for someone who is struggling? Wow. Well, without knowing what's going on with that person, without knowing anything really about that person, my general advice would be make a decision. I mean, going back to these principles, a lot of times we struggle in our life because we're struggling with our own lack of conviction. We haven't fully decided to take on the umbrella or the attitude or take on the identity of a winner, to take on the identity of someone who's truly healthy, to fully let go of all our attachments to being sick, to being in disharmony. A lot of times we hold on to stories, we hold on to toxic relationships, we hold on to toxic food because there's an emotional association patterned into that behavior. It's really behavioral psychology 101, and we have to actually come to grips with our insecurities and our shadows, and then decide, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and opening up to the mystery. It's not about you doing everything. It's about literally opening your heart space to the most opportune options that are available to you that may be right in front of you, but you're not aware of it because you need to change your perspective on it. So as far as like struggling and why we struggle with different things in life, that's the immediate thing that comes to mind. When it comes to health, nutrition, I would have to know more about the person to give really appropriate advice there. Let's see. How to modulate, Nicole asks, how to modulate epigenetic vulnerabilities with good nutrition and for metabolic risk profile identified. How do we empower ourselves with everyday something to support proper immune function? Okay, great question. So every one of us is born with some form of epigenetic or genetic weakness. So we have some kind of weakness in our genetic code and our genome where we're not fully perfect beings, perfect manifested beings physically and genetically. So some people have more of an overt or more of a dramatic weakness than others. And when you identify what your genetic weakness is, it might be a digestive weakness. It might be a nervous system weakness, like a cerebral palsy or MS or Parkinson's or something to that extent, where you just have a weak link in that area of your physicality. Then it depends. I mean, I think overall, identifying what that weak link is for you and then directing your attention appropriately towards the options that are going to best suit your unique situation, right? If it were a nervous system weakness, I'd say start looking into high saturated fat foods. I would definitely be looking into coconut oil. I'd be looking into ghee butter, which is clarified butter that extracts out the lactose and the casein protein, which is what causes typical allergens to flare up from cow's dairy. And I would also probably look into pasture-raised, grass-fed eggs for someone that has a nervous system issue, because you have to repair the insulating myelin fiber that wraps around the nerve tissue that literally breaks down over the oxidation of our atmosphere, that breaks down over the oxidation of improper diet, rancid fats, and also heavy metal toxicity. So that's one angle. Again, generally speaking, I go back to the immune system. Immunologically, that's the one way to protect ourselves from all forms of genetic weakness. Let's see. How can we use food epigenetically to turn off disease, turn on health? Kind of the same thing. The medicinal mushrooms are the most universally applicable thing for that. Universally, the more people than not can. I don't know anyone that can't actually take medicinal mushrooms and start to activate that immunological support right away. There's no LD50. That's a lethal dose 50. That's where you take 100 rats and then you do something like a pharmaceutical or some kind of herb or something, and you dose it up into the point where it kills 50 rats. That's a 50% toxicity rate is what that is. So that's what an LD50 is. So there is no LD50 of medicinal mushrooms. There's no LD50 of enzymes, by the way. Another thing is enzyme therapy. I did not bring that up, but I think genetically speaking, there's three things I would say that trump almost everything else is medicinal mushrooms, probiotic therapy, especially protein globbing, proteolytic probiotics. That's a mouthful, geez. Protein-based probiotics, and then systemic enzymes, metabolic proteolytic enzymes. For example, this product right here. This is called mass enzymes. And then Adam should be popping up actually another link for you guys. I work with a company, my good friend Wade Lightheart, who is a 3-time national bodybuilding champion. He is actually a Mr. Universe, and he's a raw vegan as well. And his whole thing is probiotic and enzyme therapy for resisting the muscle wasting, the catabolic breakdown of muscle tissue as you're working out, is actually enzymes and probiotics. And there's so much research. It's empirically evident that enzymes and probiotics are the two most important workers in the body that actually make everything else work. Nothing else like protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, vitamins, none of that stuff actually works in the body until you get probiotics and you get enzymes on the scene. And most of us have actually burnt out our enzyme and probiotic storages in the body. That's why these supplements exist, to repopulate our storage base. And so we can get back into metabolic efficiency. And enzymes are really powerful. This enzyme product in particular is really powerful. For example, I've been doing an experiment because I got about 1,500 of these enzymes recently. That's about 6 bottles. Each bottle has about 250 enzymes. And I've been just running an experiment every morning, doing 30 enzymes on an empty stomach, and then about 11 or 12, I do another 20 enzymes on wherever I'm at after lunch or after a smoothie or something. And I have to say the results are pretty powerful. They're pretty powerful. And that's how I recommend people doing it. If you're going to go to this link and you're like, hey, you know what, these protein splitting enzymes, because these enzymes have a few different protein-based enzymes, not just your standard protease, but a high concentration and cultured proteolytic enzymes that help break up all the protein storages in the body. So one of the biggest issues metabolically is our body takes on foreign protein that we can't metabolize, and it just gets stored in different parts of our tissue matrix. And we need enzymes to actually break up all that stuff and get rid of all that foreign and undigestible protein in order to truly heal ourselves. So I recommend people do at least a 90-day or 160-day supply of enzymes and probiotics through biooptimizers and run that same high dosage experiment on yourself. That to me is the most efficient and most effective way to get your bang for your buck, to get real results with enzymes. So hopefully that answered that question. Let's see. I got one more that I'm looking at from Tamra. Rub my cheeks here. Talking like this can get really make your cheeks sore. What is the most helpful focusing practice supplement herbs and food you use on a daily basis, specifically the primary favorites you would not go without. Wow, it's a lot. I think for me, the best focusing exercise I have is immediately in the morning, I read. It's immediate. I mean, I drink water, of course, and do little I do a supplement called quintone isotonics, which is basically C minerals in a homeopathic remedy, kind of homeopathic delivery medium. And that's a really powerful thing. Rene Quintone was a famous scientist who came up in the late 1800s, came up with this formula. Basically, homeopathy, can't even pronounce the word, with minerals, with oceanic minerals, basically. I found that's a really interesting supplement I take in the morning. You can look into that Quintone C plasma. Quintone C plasma, I think, is the the product that I'm thinking about. But beyond that, enzymes, as far as supplements, again, enzymes and probiotics are key. What's a focusing thing, though? I read immediately in the morning. I read something spiritually focused, usually, to kind of just tune myself into the appropriate state of being. And then from there, I go into meditation. I put on some kind of Tibetan music, some kind of background music to tune my energy system, my nervous system, like a tuning fork, to synchronize the state of feeling I want to incubate myself in. And I meditate for about 20 to 30 minutes, just focusing on my breath. And then after that, depends on the day. I use exercise as a focusing mechanism as well. And I like, depending on where I'm at emotionally, I use that as a way to focus in and to get me away from the computer, to get me away from more research and more cerebral activity, to get me into my body. Going on walks is really key for that too. And then far as supplement herbs, my favorite herb in the world is reishi mushroom. That's my favorite herb of all time. So I definitely recommend that. In the morning, another herb I think is really great for a lot of people is astragalus. Astragalus is a qi herb, or in the Chinese system of the three treasures, there's qi, there's jing, and there's shen. And our qi is our immediate firepower. It's our immediate animated energy. And this is the reason why people are taking artificial stimulants and high amounts of coffee and caffeine, is because they have a qi deficiency. And that translates also into a blood deficiency of some sort as well. But essentially, they're not able to, they're basically, caffeine from the Chinese Taoist perspective is a false fire. So you're falsifying your energy production, basically. You're giving it false fuel. And astragalus is something that you can put into your morning tonic and gives you that natural qi energy. So that's something I think is really cool. And then I pretty much like cacao. Is pretty much a staple in my diet. There's times when I like to cycle it in and out, but overall, cacao is usually always in there. I find that I have a love relationship with cacao, just the diva, the spirit of the Theobroma cacao plant is very present in my whole deal. Why I'm doing it, why I'm on this planet, why I'm a voice for natural nutrition and superfoods and chocolate nutrition as well. Cacao is always there some way, somehow. Cacao is a delivery system for herbal medicine. So it widens the capillaries or dilates the capillaries of our cardiovascular system. That's why cacao is so revered as an adjunct to herbal medicine. And many other factors, the monoamine oxidase inhibiting factors of cacao that are actually present to different concentrations in cacao. And that's kind of the entheogenic or the psychedelic quality of cacao. Very subtle, not to the point of like tetrahydrocannabinol or THC, which is the active psychedelic or psychotropic ingredient in cannabis, which is different than the CBD, by the way. Maybe we'll do a webinar on CBD at some point. It's a powerful, powerful tool. But that's kind of the thing with cacao, is that's why it's kind of referenced as an antidepressant. That one little bean is actually the antidepressant pill that people want to be taking, opposed to these psychotropic medications that we do know are highly correlated, in a lot of cases directly connected to suicidal tendencies, even though they're supposed to not cause, they're supposed to reverse suicidal or chemical imbalances, and they actually tend to exacerbate those issues. Cacao is really important in all of those cases. Many other obvious aspects of chocolate. And I'm releasing a book at the beginning of next year called The Hidden Messages in Chocolate, to fully articulate all the research into my love with cacao. So that is all the questions that I am aware of. I have about 10 more minutes that I can stay on here. Unfortunately, I have a neuromuscular release therapy that I have to get into in about 30 minutes. But if there's maybe one or two more questions that I can address.
Yeah, Ronnie. Let's see. We have a question coming in from Lindsay, and she's saying, regarding colonics, would you recommend doing a cleansing protocol a few days before to colon hydrotherapy, or starting with colon hydrotherapy first?
Okay, I'm wondering if she means doing like an enema, because an enema is a self-administered, kind of like a less glorified form of a colonic. A colonic and colon hydrotherapy are the same thing. So the actual science or the study of colonics is called colon hydrotherapy. And so a colonic is the actual activity of colon hydrotherapy. I recommend, if someone's going to do a series of colonics, and I do recommend people do a series of them, at least 3 to 6, depending on the situation, depending on how much accumulated matter needs to be removed, and if someone's like in a really serious condition. But definitely for weight loss, if you're holding excess weight, I found that it can be just this little fecal matter that rests on the ribs of our intestinal lining. It just kind of sticks there, right? And so that stuff just needs to get broken up and hydrated and then mobilized out of the body. So doing it every, I'd say like 2 to 3 days in between, and then doing it in combination with a juice fast is really amazing to speed up that process. Really incredible. So that's kind of how I recommend that.
Okay, we have another thing here from Gail. She's asking you if you can address Hashimoto's. Okay,
I can address Hashimoto's quickly. So Hashimoto's is basically the manifestation of an autoimmune condition affecting the thyroid, right? One thing to understand about there's 2 things with Hashimoto's. Off the top of my head, this kind of goes deep, but as far as the distillation of all the research I've ever seen and the big voices on autoimmune conditions and thyroid metabolism, is 2 things. One, it's definitely, there's a leaky gut situation when it comes to any kind of autoimmune condition, regardless, because what happens with autoimmune conditions for the most part is that there's whole proteins from food that literally that go through the protective mucosa lining or the intestinal lining of our digestive system, because there's a gap, there's a permeability. Leaky gut is also known as intestinal permeability, where that intestinal lining opens up. The gap that's usually like this, where we have microvilli that reach out and pull in nutrients, well, it gets opened up a little more, and whole proteins that haven't been properly metabolized slip through the cracks into our bloodstream, and it basically sends off an immune response where that protein has a certain code, for example, on it. So that code could be AABB, right? So the immune system recognizes that code, and let's say your thyroid gland is actually an encased, is a case with thousands of microglands that we call a thyroid gland. So one of those glands or a bunch of those glands could have A, B, A, something like that. But it's familiar enough where if you still have that leaky gut syndrome going on, the immune system gets confused, and then it goes to there, and it's like, oh, that's a foreign protein. It's a foreign invasive organism that we have to attack because it's gonna harm the body. So immune system issues are interesting in that way, where medicinal mushrooms come back again. It's an immune, one part, it's a digestive issue with the leaky gut. Another issue is that it's an immune confusion. It's an immune inefficiency where the immune system needs to be tightened up. It needs to be formatted. It needs to be educated. Medicinal mushrooms in high dosages, not like 1, 2, 3, 4 tablets. I'm talking about like 15 to 20 tablets of chaga extract. 10 tablets of 10 to 15 tablets of reishi mushroom. We're talking about that kind of dosages in a hot tonic or something like that. And then the other part is the overall metabolism of your thyroid, which is basically being run on a form of halogen. So if you look at the periodic table of elements, you'll notice that the halogens, there's chlorine, there's bromine, there's fluorine, there's fluoride. Those are the halogens, right? And these are basically minerals or elements that volatilize into the environment, and we take these things in through breathing, through absorption into the skin, through touching. Now, what we've all done historically is we have taken in a very toxic antibiotic halogen known as chlorine. And that chlorine literally will plug up into the iodine receptor site in our thyroid because, again, we can't create a void in our physiology or our biochemistry. That void has to get filled up with something. So if we're deficient in iodine, a mineral or element that's similar enough to it will be sought out to replace it. And that chlorine is very detrimental metabolically and digestively as well. We know the implications of chlorine as an antibiotic, but we don't realize that that could be affecting the thyroid because we have a deficiency in iodine. That's what Hashimoto's is in many aspects, is it's an iodine deficiency. I don't care what anyone says about that or the so-called controversy on iodine and Hashimoto's. I think it's nonsense. I think iodine is absolutely critical as a fuel source for our thyroid metabolism. And another thing is to understand about the radioactive exposure in radioactive iodine 151 that's been spewed out ever since 1986 when Chernobyl, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor disaster happened. Just because we're over here in America, we're like, oh no, that happened over there. That's them. We've been dealing with that too, especially on the West Coast now with Fukushima. Iodine is absolutely critical as a supplement to block off the absorption of radioactive iodine. That's really critical because that is throwing our metabolism, our thyroid, our adrenal glands, our HPA hormone axis. All of that stuff is being thrown out of whack because of this one aspect of what I think is an iodine imbalance, essentially. So what we need to do is start taking the right dosages of the right kind of iodine and taking it sublingually, meaning like a drop, like 1 to 2 drops in your mouth. But probably the best way to do it is to dilute it in a shot of water. 1 to 3 single drops, not droppers, but drops of iodine in water, and then also taking iodine and rubbing it on the thyroid. And a cool trick you can see is that if the iodine absorbs, like you have to rub it because it's a halogen, so it can volatilize off if it doesn't absorb right away. You want to rub it into your thyroid, and then if you do, and you start to notice that it starts to disappear, it's soaking into your body. is what's happening, like instantly. That means that your body is soaking it up into the receptors. That's a good thing. If it starts to, you're rubbing it in, but it doesn't really come in, then that most likely means that you're good. You have a good amount of it. But again, I think that the simple answer, and I invite you to research this more. I don't have time, or I don't proclaim to have all the answers on this, but these are the areas I would look into: is leaky gut, empowering the immune system through mycological nutrition, which is medicinal mushrooms, and then thyroid metabolism through iodine supplementation.
We got one more question here from Tamara. Cool. And she wants to know, where do you get your cacao paste from?
Oh, great question. There's a few resources I like. I like the guys over at Ultimate Superfoods, or OGO.com. I'm good friends with those guys. That's Robert Cassar's company, if you may know his name. LongevityWarehouse.com has an excellent cacao paste, Ariba Nacional Ecuadorian cacao paste that I believe is coming from a single farm, which I really love their cacao paste. Depending where you are, Tamara, I don't remember where she's at right now, so I can't, you can look at different health food stores. Different Whole Foods might carry good brands here and there. There's a lot of good brands out there. Most of the brands are actually getting it from the same place, the Ecuadorian or the Ariba Nacional variety of cacao. Most of them are private labeling the same source. Not everyone, but most of those big companies. So Divine Organics is another great one. But if you're going to order online, it's either going to be Ultimate Superfoods or it's going to be Longevity Warehouse, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, it seems like that wraps up the 7 Steps for Invincible Health online seminar. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for going to watch and learn from Ronnie Landis. We'll have a replay link for all of you available. For those who had challenge, one second. I think Tamara wants to talk to you directly. Let's see. It's going to be fun. One moment. Tamara, are you there? Oh, here we go.
Hi, Tamara, are you on? Oh, she's unmuted, that's why.
She's on mute?
Yeah, we got to unmute it.
Okay, here we go. Oop. 1 second.
Still working out some of the bugs. Oh.
All right, I don't know, I guess.
Looks like this is another area of webinar education that we're going to have to work out. How to unmute a guest once they come online.
Yeah, this is weird.
That's pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, that's strange. Well, we've been having the biggest technical difficulties along with other people using the server. But if you have anything to say, Tamara, just go ahead and put it in the chat box. We'll follow up with there. Other than that, let's go to the chat box. You're welcome, Kelly. That's awesome. To have you all. We'll make sure to do another one to make sure that everyone can actually get online and participate. Throughout this whole webinar, we contacted our technical support team so they could help us coming on. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't think we're going to be able to talk to you this time in person, Tamara. But
that's okay. I have a connection with her, so I'm sure we'll be able to chat. One thing I do want to say, too, for everyone is that if you guys have ideas for topics that you would love to have explored for future webinars, we want to do this bi-weekly at the very minimum. So if you guys have topics that you think would be really beneficial or different ideas, feel free to shoot over Adam Sadiq a message about that. And
I'll put my email in the
okay,
chat box.
cool. Well, yeah. And as far as this goes and I go, I have to go. So it was a pleasure being on with all of you guys. This one felt really good, really a little more in the flow than our first one, which is to be expected. And I think that they're only going to get better with time. So thank you for being a part of it, being a part of the work I do in the world and supporting me. That means the world to me. And to share this work and to share the Holistic Health Mastery Program with everyone out there is really a blessing. I really appreciate all the support. So thank you guys so much from my end. Peace and blessings. And I will see you guys shortly.
Good stuff.